Digital literacy, computer hardware, and troubleshooting lab topology. Lab topology. During your session, you will have to access to the following lab configuration. In the image given here is VLABDC01 domain controller 192.168.0.1, and the next one is VLABDMO1 domain member server 192.168.0.2. Then the third one is VLA Win10 workstation 192.168.0.3. Then the last one is VLAB Win11 workstation 192.168.0.4. Depending on the exercises, you may or may not use all of the devices, but they are shown here in the layout to get an overall understanding of the topology of the lab. And the first one is PLABDC01 Windows Server 2012 R2 Domain Controller. Next one is PLABDMO1 Windows Server 2012 R2 Domain Member Server. Next one is PLAB Win10 Windows 10 Enterprise Domain Workstation. And the last one is PLAB Win11 Windows 10 Enterprise Domain Workstation. Exercise 1. Troubleshooting hardware issues in Windows. Troubleshooting an issue in a single or network system can be a difficult task. A problem can differ in size and nature, and therefore the resolution of each problem also differs. It is critical for the PC technician or the technical support professional to use logical reasoning for arriving at the solution. This can mean that although the problem seems complicated, it may not take long to resolve. For example, assume that a system on the network is not able to connect to the other systems on the network. It does sound like a big problem. However, you can use the troubleshooting methodology to arrive at a solution. For example, you can see if other systems are facing the same problem. If not, it is easy for you to isolate this as a system-specific problem. From here onwards, you know that you may not have to look at networks components, but rather focus on the individual system. Find the obvious cause, see if the system is receiving the IP address. Is the network icon showing disconnection? If yes, then maybe you want to replace the network cable and then see if it works. Logically, the troubleshooting can use 6-step methodology. Number 1 is identify the problem. Then number 2 is establish a theory of probable cause. You need to question the obvious. Number 3 is after establishing the theory, test it. This will help you determine the cause. Number 4 is after the theory is proven, you need to establish a plan of action to resolve the problem. Finally, go ahead and implement the solution. Number 5 is after implementing the solution, ensure that you verify the system functionality. This is to check that your solution has not introduced any problem in the system. You should also implement preventive measures if possible to ensure that the same problem does not arise. Number 6 is finally you need to document the problem and the solution. The document can always be used by other team members who face the same issue in other systems. The steps mentioned above the generic and can be applied in any troubleshooting scenario. In this exercise, you will learn about troubleshooting some hardware-related issues in Windows. Learning outcomes. After completing this exercise, you will be able to troubleshoot hardware-related issues, troubleshoot printing issues, troubleshoot device drivers issues. Next one is your devices. This exercise contains supporting materials for troubleshooting hardware issues in Windows. Next one is troubleshoot hardware related issues. In this task, you will learn to troubleshoot some hardware related issues that can arise. Failure to boot. There are various reasons as to why a system may fail to boot up. Some of the problems could be related to the system files, master boot record, MBR, or it could be due to a USB device attached to your system. Let's start with a basic problem. Assume that the system is set to boot from an external device and you had attached a USB drive to your system before booting it. Now, the system you will not boot. It will look for an operating system within the USB drive, which is not present. The simplest solution to this is to remove the USB drive and boot the system. The system will find the hard drive in the boot order in the BIOS basic input output system and 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 load the operating system. Each system BIOS has a boot order that can alter as needed by default. Most systems have a hard drive as the first device to boot from. However, if you had made changes to the boot order, a CD-ROM drive or USB may be the first boot device. The second solution is to change the boot order and set the hard drive as the first device. Either of these solutions will resolve this problem. There can also be an issue of missing or corrupt system files. You can use the startup repair tool to fix this issue. To repair corrupt system files, you can also use the SFC System File Checker tool. There are two more methods that can repair a Windows system that has failed to boot. You can attempt to use the Reset Disk PC option, which will reinstall Windows. The second method is System Restore. Allows you to use the restore point of recover a working copy of the Windows. If any of these methods fail, you can use the System Image Recovery method to restore Windows from a previously saved image. Next one is hard drive configuration errors. There are various reasons due to which you can face hard drive configuration errors. Some of the key reasons are incorrect boot order. This is the simplest reason you need to boot your system. Get into the BIOS and set the hard drive as the first preferred device to boot from. The hard drive is not detected by the BIOS. You should check if all the physical connections between the hard drive and motherboard are made properly. If the connection is loose from either side, motherboard, or the hard drive, the BIOS will not be able to detect the hard drive. And the next one is an incorrect malformed master boot record, which is a MBR. A malformed or missing MBR can also cause the missing operating system error. To fix this issue, you can recreate the MBR using a third-party tool, such as a mini tool partition wizard bootable CD. Next one is a partition is not marked active. Windows needs an active partition to boot if you are using legacy BIOS in MVR if the partition on which Windows is loaded is not marked as active. Windows will not load. You can use a third-party tool to set the correct partition as active. Next one is the hard drive is damaged. If a hard drive is physically damaged, it would require replacement. After replacing the hard drive, you would need to reload Windows. Obviously, you will need to restart it and restart everything like a format. Next one is blue screen of death, BSOD. The blue screen of death, BSOD, is a blue screen error condition which occurs when Windows fails to boot due to a bad program, device driver, or a hard drive component. When a BSOD occurs, you will find a stop code that can help you determine the root cause of the issue. When BSOD occurs, you should remember the last activity that you had performed. For instance, if you had installed a program or updated the device drivers, there is a high probability that the last change made by you has caused BSOD. To resolve a BSOD, ensure that the drivers are updated. You should uninstall the recently updated driver if a BSOD occurs. After it after its installation, to uninstall the updated drivers, you should boot Windows in safe mode, which loads only basic device drivers such as VGA drivers. After you uninstall the device driver, you can perform a normal boot and test the system for BSOD. If the issue was due to a bad device driver, then the BSOD error should have been resolved. Next one is, if you are not aware of the BSOD reason, try some of the common solutions. Next one is, updated BIOS and incompatible BIOS can also cause BSOD. Next one is, reset the hardware setting in Device Manager. This would be required if you had made changes to the hardware settings, which could have probably caused BSOD. Next one is, reset the hardware devices such as memory modules. Next is, reset the cables such as data and power cables. Next one is, reset expansion cards such as the display or network adapters. Next one is, test the hardware components such as memory and hard drive. Next one is, replace the faulty hardware. Black screens. In Windows 10, a black screen can occur due to two key reasons. Display device driver update. A recent device driver update can cause the black screen to appear. You should simply uninstall the device driver using safe mode. Next one is, a loose physical connection between the display adapter and the motherboard. This could be a reason you experience the black screen before you are even signed into Windows. You should check all the physical connections and ensure everything is fitted well. Next one is, peripherals connected to the system. A peripheral such as Bluetooth or USB can also cause a black screen if you have multiple peripherals connected to the system. Disconnect all of them and then restart the system if a black screen does not occur. Then you know if it was one of the peripherals that were causing it. There may be a possibility that you are able to boot into Windows and a black screen appears only after sign in. If you are able to see the mouse pointer, then the possibility is that the issue is Windows Explorer. You should open Task Manager and restart the Windows Explorer service. And next one is, update boot order. The boot order for a system is updated in the UEFI BIOS configuration depending upon your requirements. You can boot form. Then we have 5 bullets over here that says network adapter, CD-ROM DVD, hard drive, floppy disk, USB drive. Depending on what is needed, you can set the UEFI BIOS to boot from a specific device in a typical scenario. You will set the first, second, and third boot device if you are installing the operating system for the first time on a raw system. You would typically set the USB or the CD-ROM DVD to be the first boot device. Alternatively, in a network scenario, you may use a network adapter to boot and accept the installation files from a centralized server. If you are booting a system with the operating system, the first boot device would be set to the hard drive. Next one is, troubleshooting printing issues. A system can suffer from different types of printing issues in this task. You will go through several types of printing issues and understand the common causes. And there's a resolution in this task. You will learn to troubleshoot printing issues. Printer offline. When you have a printer connected to your system and both are online, you can still face the offline printer problem. This problem indicates that there is a communication problem between the system and the printer. The resolve To resolve this issue, you can open the printer properties and verify that the title bar states that use printer offline. If yes, then from the printer menu, uncheck the use printer offline, which is shown here in the image below. So next one is figure 1.1. Printer properties are open and the title bar states use printer offline. After performing the step mentioned above, if that isn't issue resolved, if that issue isn't resolved, then you need to check the printer spooler service in the service console. Restart this service once and then try printing often. The printer spooler service goes into a hang state and cannot communicate with the printer. Therefore, it puts the printer offline. Despite performing these two steps, if the printer is still offline, try updating the device drivers from the printer. You can also reboot your system once to ensure that the system is working fine. Next one is troubleshoot device drivers issues. A system has various components that need the device drivers to run. An incompatible or outdated device driver can cause issues in the system. In this task, you will learn to troubleshoot device driver issues. Next one is device fails to start. Device in the Windows have a few prerequisites to start properly. We have three bullets here below. They must be physically installed properly. Second one is they must have appropriate device drivers installed. Third one is they must be configured properly. So a device such as a CD-ROM drive must be physically installed properly. It must be connected to the appropriate ports on the motherboard. If there is a loose connection with the Windows will not be able to detect it. You must check the connections properly. Next one is each device in Windows requires a set of device drivers which must be loaded. After the device drivers are loaded, Windows is able to use the device. Windows contains a database with device drivers for almost all of the devices. However, with the technology advancement and new devices being launched, there will be scenarios in which you will need separately install the device drivers that are provided by the manufacturer. A device, even after being connected properly and with the device drivers loaded, must also be configured properly. For example, an add-on display after may not function if it is not configured properly. Next one is rollback devices drivers. Let's assume that you have recently run Windows Update and several updates were installed including device drivers for the network adapter. You notice that after the drivers were updated, the system is no longer able to connect to the network. One possible reason could be that the device drivers, even though they were updated, are incompatible with the make of the network adapter, or there is some other compatibility issues. To resolve this situation, you need to roll back the updated drivers to the previous versions. All versions of the Microsoft Windows provide this feature of rolling back the drivers. Rolling back device drivers is essentially uninstalling the version of the device drivers you had just installed and reinstalling the previous versions. The driver tab of the device properties dialog box will allow you to perform multiple tasks, including rolling back drivers. Notice that in the screenshot below, the rollback drivers option is disabled. This indicates that there is no previous version of the device drivers available. It is also important to note that the Windows only keeps one previous version of device driver. For any device that is installed, this allows you to roll back device drivers only once, which is shown in the image below. Figure 1.2. A device properties dialog box is open. The rollback driver button is grayed out and unavailable.